is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
I'd like to call our February 19th meeting to order. We do have a full agenda tonight. We do have workshops after this meeting. The first order of business, minutes from our meeting of January 15th. Everyone's had a chance to look at it. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just have one quick comment. Again, this is the January Board of Finance minutes from the January 15th Board of Finance meeting. And during that meeting, we had a presentation from Mr. Joseph Santafanti from O'Connor Davies, the accounting firm that provided us with our annual audit. And Mr. Santafanti made a point to clarify that he does not assess or provide feedback on our town's budget. So just in the interest of accuracy and full transparency, I just would like to suggest that we make just a parenthetical addition to the minutes that just says, the O'Connor Davies audit resulted in a satisfactory finding in regard to the financial reporting of the town of North Haven in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. No serious deficiencies were discovered. And I would just like to recommend that we add excluding internal reporting mechanisms, because what he's referring to here is really just referring to our external reports.
I don't think that's what he said.
And the minutes give a general overview of what was discussed and takes the vote. I mean, the film itself, the meeting itself is filmed. It is on tape.
Yeah, I'm just adding to the actual language of the minutes.
But
I think he did say something about not opining my word on the budget, but I don't think he extended that to talking about the internal reporting for the town, because that's in effect what our finance office does. And I think he does look at that. Yeah.
So this came up when I asked him a very specific question about an accounting practice that was used for our town's budget. And he responded by saying that he does not actually provide any feedback regarding our budgetary process. So that's why
and I
I'm
don't
making
think
this
board
suggestion.
members remember exactly what or was not said specifically to what you're referencing. My position is that the minutes are supposed to reflect general discussion and the votes that are done. So I'm not looking to modify it, especially since no one really remembers. Maybe if you had told us of your concern earlier, we could have reviewed it, but at this point, I'm not looking to, and we can take a vote on it, but yeah, let's take that approach.
Well, the subject was on debt reserves. Then he said he wasn't going to make a comment on that. That wasn't what he was doing. You know, we talked about at that time how the debt reserve fund was utilized. It was sanctioned by the rating agencies. So I'm not sure to make a broad statement that he doesn't comment on the budget when the fact we have auditors come in here and look at our numbers at the end of every fiscal year, right?
Right, so they go through the revenue and expenditures. They do look at our numbers, our financial numbers, but he's not making any comments on how I put together the budget.
Right.
You know, good or bad.
The audit has a budget to actual comparison, doesn't it?
Right, he makes sure the totals agree with what's been approved, and then go through that.
So I think we are, well, you've requested, are you making a motion to amend it?
I am making a suggestion, and I guess I'm making a motion.
Is there a
to add
second to that motion?
Can I just ask Nancy to repeat a motion first, please?
Sure, of course. If you turn to page 2 of the minutes, and you look at the section indicated as review of the 630 CAFR, and you go down to the second sentence, it says, the O'Connor Davies audit resulted in a satisfactory finding in regard to the financial reporting of the town of North Haven in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. No serious deficiencies were discovered. And I'm just asking to add to that, just parenthetically, excluding internal reporting mechanisms, because what he specifically said when I asked him about a particular accounting practice that was used in our budget was that he does not provide any detailed feedback regarding our internal reporting, meaning our budgetary process. And so he was speaking on behalf of the O'Connor Davies Corporation.
Is there a
Or accounting
second?
firm.
Is there a second to that motion?
Well, I'll second it for further discussion purposes.
Is there any further discussion?
I believe that what he, whether he said it or not, what he meant to say was that he, within his scope of work, he's not tasked with reviewing or commenting on the way the budget is presented to the public and the way it's printed. So I think that's kind of part of what the exception that she's trying to bring out here is that there was a problem, or there were questions regarding the debt service line in the way it was reported, and he simply stated that it wasn't within his privy to comment on that, the way it was printed in the budget book. So I didn't know if you wanted to keep the exact same parenthetical language you were mentioning here, or whether you thought there might be a way to either clarify or get it, to have it more in line, I think, with the specific instance that he drew an exception about.
Again, I think it's just, he's using the term generally accepted accounting principles, and I was asking him about this particular accounting principle that was used within our budgetary process, and he was unwilling to comment on that particular practice because he does not provide any feedback about our internal budget, our town budget.
The minutes aren't a verbatim transcript,
Ed?
and I don't recall it.
We've laid out our financials in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. I don't know what else I can say from my financial point, but he's not here to critique our budget, how we lay it out, what format we use, because that's not what he came in here for.
Right.
He came in here to make sure we have a formally adopted budget that was passed and approved, and that the numbers that are in the report
Are
are
true.
accurate.
Yes?
And that's what he's charged with.
Right.
So to put a parenthetical insert creates almost a false narrative that they don't do anything for us.
No.
This-
I'm not
this-
saying that.
this-
I'm very specifically saying exactly what they do. They're talking about the CAFR, which is an external report, as opposed to our internal budget.
But that's not what they do. That's what Ed's trying to tell you. They do the evaluation on the external report. That's why he's here.
Yes, that's why I'm adding this parenthetical.
But why would you add
phrasing.
that when it's been general practices for the past 25 years here for every auditor that's been here to do the same thing?
Because I asked this very specific question, and
You
he
asked a
answered.
question on debt service, and he did not comment on that, because he said it's not his job to comment on that. The job of booking the debt service is up to Ed, myself, bond counsel, and our outside actuarial analysis company, who advised us, under the general rules of accounting, to book the bond premiums for debt service, and that's what we did. It's not Joe Sanafani's jurisdiction to rule on that, when 3 other people have already ruled on it.
I mean, again, it's not supposed to be a verbatim recap of everything that was said.
No, I'm
So
just trying to
there's-
make it as
Understood.
accurate and transparent as
You
possible.
made a resolution, it was seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay.
Opposed.
Having said that, if there's no other comments on the minutes from January 15th, can I have a motion to accept it as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Old business.
Okay.
Fiscal year 2021 budget is with us. We are in the process of doing workshops. We have 3 workshops, or actually 5 technically workshops right after this meeting. So I'd like to move to our new business, report on expenditures. Any questions or comments?
I just have 2 quick comments. One, based upon the presentation that was made by the fire chief, I would just like to float the idea out to my colleagues on the Board of Finance that it might benefit this board to go as a group and actually tour both the fire headquarters and perhaps even one of the volunteer firehouses. I think it would be really useful to be able to see it up front. I know that Mr. Hallahan and Mr. Monaco are very familiar with it, having served in the work group, but I think the rest of us might actually benefit from that. And that's...
Sorry, Nancy.
Sorry, go ahead.
I thought you were through. I
Yeah,
just
go
want to
ahead.
say that may be a good idea, but we can't go as a group without calling a meeting. We'd have to go
So that
individually
can't-
or have...
Go as separate groups
Right,
or
yeah, right.
however we
Right.
can...
I'm sure if you wanted to look at the station, that you call the chief, he'd give you a tour of it.
I toured Montauk's when they, I toured all the stations.
Yeah.
Well, I toured Montauk's when it was done. I've seen Montauk's.
Yeah, I mean, it's brick and mortar, there's
Yeah.
not a lot you gain by looking at a building.
Right. Well, I think some of us haven't been in it in a while, and certainly they've made some changes, so it might be worth touring. But
Anything else?
just a suggestion. And the other suggestion that I had is, I attended both the Board of Education meeting last week, based upon the chair's invitation, and I also attended the Finance Subcommittee for the Board of Ed. And I learned something that was very interesting, which was the town of North Haven, as some of us already know, has taken in 5 special ed students
Nancy, if
mid-year.
I can interrupt you.
Yeah,
We're on expenditures, townside budget. We'll get to the Board of Ed, we need to stay in our sequence. So if you can hold
well,
your
this
question.
is old business, but,
Well, he moved
Well,
on to expenditures, but
We're on expenditures. We finished old business, we moved to expenditures, and Board of Ed is on our expenditure. If we just get through expenditures, revenue, and special funds, then you can...
okay, this
bring up-
isn't about expenditures, but I'm happy to discuss it later, that's fine.
So, if we can,
Yeah,
anyone's has...
Yep, I have a question
on
on page
expenditures.
7. So the central facilities, and so I see we're coming close, it's high, and we've got maintenance and repair of buildings, and we have rental property, and we have utilities, so are we going to go over in this area, or are these things that are one-time occurrence, unexpected? What's going on?
Well, most of them are unexpected, otherwise we try to prepare for them. But I know we've replaced the heaters and air conditioning systems, and as you see, we're already over by 44,000. There's nothing they can do about it.
So we're likely going to overrun.
Oh, we already have, because we're,
Well, yeah, I'm looking at
The
overall department. Yeah, I'm looking at the whole department as a whole. Obviously, the line items
Right.
have,
But some of the items in the rest of the account, we're not going to be able to cut, like custodial services, I can't save money there.
so
Utilities.
is it certain buildings, is it a few buildings or a lot of buildings, or we don't,
A lot of buildings.
a lot of buildings?
Because here, the Historical Society, the Annex, they've all had their share of issues this past 6 months.
Okay, so we are going to overrun. Okay, that basically answers my question.
Anything else on expenditures?
Yeah, page 16, the recreation center maintenance. Appears as though we're already 13,000 year-to-date, and then we have an encumbrance for another 15.5 thousand. So that would put us at 200%, roughly.
Oh, yeah, we did, the lights were done over there, that's right, that was 12,000 alone. But we had to do the lights over at the rec center area, so that was for the pool.
Lights above the pool?
Lights above the pool?
Ed, just one question, please.
Sure.
On page 13, which I think is Public Works or Streets and Roads, it's one or the other, Streets and Roads.
Yep.
So it's been a light winter, and we've got an encumbrance under winter maintenance and supplies, which is going to put us a little bit over, not too much, no big deal, but we've only had 2 storms. Now, I know,
that's a good
I think Mike talked about the fact that one kind of went on for an extended period of time, but I was kind of surprised that without almost any snow this year, we're over on that line.
But the encumbrance could just be that we bought salt and winter materials.
Yeah, I
and
thought
they're
that, yeah.
sitting there,
Yes, right, yeah.
So, because we're probably committed to buying so much.
Right.
But just keep in mind, even though you have those little storms, if they're icy, you have to keep going back out and sanding,
Yeah,
which I think is
right.
what happened back in December.
That's it. That's the answer.
May not pile up, but
Yeah,
it's dangerous.
right.
Anything else on expenditures?
I had another quick question on page 12, Streets and Roads. Down at the bottom of the page there, where it says personnel part-time. We have budgeted 0, and we have year-to-date we're actually incurring some expenses. So I'm just wondering, how does that work? Because I looked back at our current budget, and there are no part-time personnel listed for streets and roads, which would make sense since it's budgeted as 0. I guess it's not budgeted.
Yeah, that could have been something that belonged in the outside laborers account, 3 lines down, 4 lines down. Just a
So-
couple times they've posted items in accounts that don't have a balance, and I have to move them around.
So that line item didn't exist in our budget? and
Correct.
it's now added?
No,
What he's saying is he believes it's misapplied and it should go down to outside laborers, leafers.
right, because on the Munis system, we have a lot of accounts set up.
Ah, I
And
see.
sometimes they post things in an account that shouldn't have been posted.
So you think that this was leafers or something else?
Yeah.
Yeah, they put 105 instead of putting 174. Anything else on expenditures?
Oh, yeah, I got one more. On page 6. Help me out here, Ed. Central Supply Services, radio maintenance, 20 grand. What radio is this? I hope this is not the radio we're replacing in the police station.
No, this is towards software for the radios. It's going to be a software update to the radios.
So they're going to remain. It's
It's not radios, it's radio software.
It's radio software. And where is that located?
Most of the hardware that would get updated is probably between police and public works, I would think.
Police and fire.
Police and fire, public works.
But I thought we were buying a whole new system that's going to incorporate all of the police, fire.
They did, but
This is an upgrade.
either that
Oh,
or
this-
dispatch. Is that this? Might be dispatch.
Repair.
dispatch.
It's under
Yeah,
repair.
that's the dispatch.
This is dispatch?
Yeah, it's already dispatch, because they need a new software system.
Oh, yeah, I remember. I remember the chief talking about it.
So wouldn't it be easier if
Shouldn't
there was a
it be-
line for like software update or something? I don't know. Just make more sense
Well,
than
back when the
saying.
budget was made, I have no idea.
Yeah,
about
it probably wasn't, so maybe that should be, because we do have a lot of items of technology that need software updates. So perhaps we could look at that.
Right, but you know what's
This
happening?
year.
We've already got 540 accounts here, and if I keep
Yeah.
adding and adding, I'll have
Well, maybe
1,000
we
accounts
need-
before you know.
Well, maybe-
Everything will have its own account.
True, but maybe we need to get rid of obsolete ones. I don't know, have we ever looked at obsolete accounts?
But,
Just it.
well, this is a
just-
one-time deal,
yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, software
So, it's- yeah,
updates
so
pretty
it's
much
all
are,
done. Okay.
depending.
Anything else on expenditures?
On the page 6 there, as we mentioned last time, the fixed audit has been expended at $2,900. Is that the full cost of that special audit regarding transportation for the school system? That's our,
No, I'm working with, it's been hard getting a local audit firm right now, because it's tax season. They're not really helping me, but not even answering me sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's been hard trying to get them to do anything, so no, that is not in regards to that.
yeah, okay. The question just comes up because we would like
contract's
to know
up.
whether we could use that information during this budget season or not, and probably you're saying that there might not be any new information there.
Well, they did say they're going out for bid again,
Yeah.
that the
Yes, they
contract's
did.
up, but, yeah, you're right, Michael, believe me.
Yeah.
This is being
Okay, all
everyone's
right,
side.
that's all right. And meanwhile, under a fixed asset there on page 18, or fixed costs, I'm sorry, the interest on the bonds and notes, I don't know how it's organized in terms of our payments, but is that a straight monthly payment, or is that a quarterly payment, or is it just a periodic
Semi-annual
payment?
payments.
Pardon me?
Twice a year.
Semi-annual.
Twice.
Semi-annual.
Yeah, the bond payments are made twice a year.
Right. Okay, so in the
Sometimes
last,
they're interest only,
right. Okay.
with very little principal.
I'm looking at the right column there for these millions of dollars, and what's available on the right side should not be a concern to us. Is that correct?
No, it's what was
Okay,
budgeted.
thank you.
We're good on expenditures? Revenue?
Revenue. I got one question, and that is on page 2, town revenue, alarm use fee. What exactly is that, and where's the alarm?
Everybody's house. I think those are the fees. If you, policemen have to go to your house second time for security or third for a business, then they charge you a fee. if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you get I think 2 or 3 a year
It's 2 free
free.
passes.
Anything beyond that, they charge you like $50.
Okay. I didn't know what that was. Thank you.
So I don't think they, unless it really gets, they say, I think it's 2 or 3, but I think unless it really gets to be, you're not maintaining your system, continues to malfunction, I don't think they really start assessing until it's even beyond that. Anything else on revenue?
Will there be any personal property audits this year?
Yes, they're working on, yeah.
Okay, so that expenditure occurs when they finish that. I'm sorry, that income occurs as...
Yes, I only book it towards once at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's just crazy trying to ask for that information. So come May or June, I'll just book it all at once.
Okay, and under the building fees line there on page 2, right now we have approximately 671 that came in, and we budgeted 1.45 million. Any estimate on what that line might read at the end of the year?
Hopefully $1,450,000.
Thank you. Okay, just something to think about, that's
Yes, we
all.
have some major projects that I'm working on that'll
It is.
bring in some hefty building permit fees, sometime in the mid-spring. So, we'll see.
Very nice, sir. You're earning your pay.
If we're good on revenue, special funds? And Board of Ed. Nancy, now you had something you wanted to add?
Yes. So I just wanted to call to everyone's attention that, as I mentioned, I attended not only the Board of Ed meeting last week, but also this Board of Education Finance Subcommittee. And one of the things that I learned was that, as everyone knows, the town of North Haven has taken in 5 new students that have special education needs, and they have to be provided with education outside of the district. And because they have come into our school district mid-fiscal year, we probably will not reach the threshold necessary for excess cost grant reimbursement at the 70% level. But one of the points that was made by a Board of Ed member is that actually it benefits the state to have students with special needs and requiring special education to be moving, because then they don't have to reimburse either the school system that they leave or the school system that they move to. So as a new member of the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, I reached out, based upon the February report, to the representative Mike Muzinski, who's an advocate specifically for education issues. And I think, Mike, Mr. Frieda, you were CC'd on this email.
No, I wasn't, actually. Not on your email.
No, on his response.
So can I ask you why? Because they asked me why you didn't copy me on the original email.
I had intended to, and then I hit send before I did so
Because-
I apologize. But I'm glad that he responded
Could
on
have
the way
done it
back.
twice.
And I would have sent it to you if he hadn't responded within 20 minutes.
Because just so you know, Nancy?
Yes.
It's one of my big initiatives as CCM President and Chairman of the Executive Board of Directors is special ed. I've
I'm
had many
glad.
meetings at the state level. We're trying to figure out a solution
I
to
think
minimize
it's
the
terrific.
volatility. So I was quite surprised when I saw the response back from Mike that you hadn't copied me on the original email.
Well, I'm glad that Mike did CC you, and as I said, it was simply an oversight. But the main point is that he was able to respond to me with a description of, as you know, 3 different initiatives that
That's
are
right.
going on that hopefully will address this and will hopefully make sure that North Haven's investment in our exemplary special education program doesn't make us a target, and that we will not be penalized for that in the future. So I just wanted to call that to everybody's attention.
Again, and Nancy, I know you're new to the board. If you request information and you're going to represent yourself as being a member of the Board of Finance, it needs to come through the chair, not directly.
Even if I'm a member of the CCM?
Well,
You're not a member. The
you're not
town's a member.
of CCM. So you have to understand, Nancy, that what you did was you were, as an individual member of the Board of Finance, without informing the president of CCM and the chairman of the executive board, you, in effect, you run the risk of trying to establish policy on your own without anybody here knowing about it, and probably not anyone on the Board of Ed knowing about it. So you have to be very careful in terms of how you position that.
Right.
So you cannot, as an individual Board of Finance member, represent the town and try to dictate or institute a policy without other Board of Finance members knowing about it,
Right.
without the approval of the superintendent. And let's put aside the fact that yours truly, as the president of CCM, didn't know anything about it, who is the guy who's spearheading special ed across the state. So I think what Rich is saying, you've got to be very, very careful.
Right.
You personally are not a member of CCM. The town is. But you got to be careful of trying to advocate for policy when no one else knows what you're doing.
Well, I did forward this to Superintendent Stirk, as well as to the members of, to both Anita Anderson, the chair of the Board of Education, and to two of the members who represent the Finance Subcommittee. And Mr. Stirk wrote back to me right away and was very appreciative of my efforts. So,
I'll make it clear.
Okay.
As, if, as an individual, as a person, if you want to send an email out, that's fine. If you're going to send an email out and sign it as a member of this board, it needs to come through the chair so that it can be weighed and it can be distributed to all sitting members.
See,
It's that simple.
the way you described it, you did it before even the superintendent knew it. So you took it on your own to do it without talking to anybody who's either directly involved with it or responsible for it. All we're saying here, you have to be very careful,
yes. Okay.
because you tend to, because that is overstepping boundaries, and you cannot, none of us can be doing that on this board without board consensus, and when it comes to special education, doing it with the approval of people versus doing it independently. That is what we're trying to say here.
Okay, well, I was simply trying to help the town. That's really my goal. That's how I campaigned, and
that's fine.
I
But do it as an-
responded to an
Do it as an
invitation to attend that
individual,
meeting.
not as a board member, and that's fine.
All we're saying is, at the very least, it should have been the approval of the board ahead of time. And you could have certainly called me and said, Mike, you're president of CCM, you're the one that filled us in at the Board of Ed meeting about how the in-placements work during the school season. And you yourself, Mike, cited the fact that one of your counterparts in Simsbury and Avon talked about this very issue.
Right.
I could have told you what we're doing on a state level.
Right, well, that's why I'm calling it to the board's attention, including to the president of CCM, so.
Well, all we're saying is, you might want to consider doing it in reverse the next time.
Okay.
Anything else on Board of Ed?
The Board of Ed has a page there, I'm not sure if it's in every month, regarding the grant activity on the last meeting's page there. Is that something we've received every month?
I don't think we have.
No, I think
I don't
it's
recall
new.
seeing it much.
No,
Yeah, well, it's
it's a nice added piece.
I'd say it's informative, but I have the most basic question of all time. That's really dumb. All right, here's a dumb question tonight. Is this showing the expenses related to each of these, or is this showing the amount of income that we receive from each of these grant programs?
Let's do it before. I have no idea.
I'm not, I would guess that what she's trying to show us is the first column is how much money each of these grants will have for the year, and then the next column, or two columns over, is what they've expended against it.
It does
Right
say
now,
here
her
that
and I-
expended.
Yeah.
Yeah, expended.
Yeah, I
Right now,
didn't
her and
know-
We're trying to work on the grants to make sure we're all in balance, and I'm meeting with her again tomorrow to move that along. I think we're getting close, but if my best guess is that's what she's trying to do here.
based on expected grant money, not necessarily received grant money.
Well, expected, yeah, probably because they had sent in for a grant and it was approved, so I would expect that would be the number.
Okay, but that's not so the revenue so far, right, they're at 50% with the revenue for education.
Well, none of that's revenue, because most of that hasn't come in yet.
Well, it does say
That would have to be the grant
Yeah.
award.
in their narrative in the beginning, it mentions that the last bit of the excess cost grants received in March. But is this, yeah, and that would be
It really
B4.
just shows just the grant amount.
Yeah, B4, and it shows 0. So I guess, no, wait, I'm sorry. Which line is that? Oh, yeah, that's the second line, 1.5 million. All right, well, I'd like to, just a little additional clarification if possible on that, to understand what this means.
See if you can ask her first.
Those
Anything
first
else?
two columns is budget and revised budget, and in no way reflects what's coming in. Those first two columns.
Okay.
Anything else on Board of Ed?
They're still working on a hard freeze because of their budget concerns. Is that right? I still have that.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I move that we accept the reports.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We do have one resolution by town charter, the Board of Finance. If a treasurer resigns, the Board of Finance is charged with appointing a replacement. So if Mr. Dani could read our resolution.
Yes, I'd like to offer the following resolution. It is hereby resolved that pursuant to Town Charter Section 205A2, Richard Monaco is appointed acting town treasurer effective March 17th, 2020. Said appointment continuing until such time as the Board of Selectmen has appointed a new town treasurer.
Any discussion?
Well, that was a motion, right?
Is there a second?
We need a second.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Why was the date changed? The date was going to be, was originally effective immediately and was changed to March 17th?
Still available to the 17th?
Because Lori Jane's resignation is until the 16th or the 17th.
March 17th,
Yeah.
right.
So she's still able to do the,
Yeah. That, could someone remind me what the responsibilities and duties are of the treasurer?
Well, there's 4 police pension board meetings a year, so the treasurer would sit in on that with myself and a member of the police union and one other person who is appointed to sit on that. So they got the police pension board meetings. Another example of what the treasurer would do is when Ed and I are down in New Haven and we are bonding for items that are approved by town meetings or referendums, then Ed and I will watch the bonding proceedings. We will look at the bond premiums that we're collecting and that are projected. We will work with our bond counsel and others to determine what to do with the premiums, and then we'll call the treasurer up, and in the case of Lori Jean is here tonight, we'll give her an update, and she will then go with us and approve, the bond information. So those are some of the responsibilities.
Yeah, I know it's a stipended position, and I know that we have a great finance office here, so sometimes the public and myself are not up to date on everything that the treasurer does. But if Mr. Monaco thinks he can handle the job, I'll waive a review of the qualifications and just say, okay. I will have a belief that he can do it. And by the way, Lori Jean, I think, did a fine job, and sorry she's moving on to other duties or other goals.
Should be working with Patty. They're going to make a nice team together in the registrar's office. They've already hit it off very well.
Okay, but when it's time for the treasurer's report, he could sit out there too, if he wants.
treasurer doesn't do a report.
I can
No, we
understand.
don't. We don't have much, we don't get a treasurer.
Oh, we have a, okay, we have this. Okay, anyway, yes, so you may call the question.
I'm not chairman, you are. I made the resolution. We had a first and a second, you got to call the vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention. Please keep in mind, we do have 5 workshops after this. Public comment. Does anyone have anything for public comment? Ms. Quimby?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Sally Buemi, 5 Blossom Drive. I have 2 areas of concern I wanted to talk about. The first one is about utility expenses. Of course, these are all reflected in the expenditure report.
Do you have the page number?
Well, there's utility expenses in the Board of Ed
Just in
budget,
general?
and the library budget, central facilities, police, fire. But what inspired me to think about this was a question actually that Mrs. Barrett had asked at the Board of Ed workshop when she questioned a 23% increase in the electricity line. And a little bell went off in my head, and perhaps Mr. Doheny will remember this as well. On June 25th of 2015, we had a special Board of Selectmen meeting where we undertook this Johnson Controls program, which involved a significant enhancement of infrastructure to save on utility bills. And Tim and I had a lot of concerns, and we were both dragged into finally going along with it. But I reviewed the minutes of that meeting, and there was talk about how the payments for the loan, which was $6.5 million, to put in these infrastructure improvements, was to save approximately, according to the minutes, $400,000 a year. So this was in 15, and they were supposed to take 12 months to put all these enhancements in. So I figured, all right, let me start looking at 16, 17 forward. So I actually started with the 15, 16 fiscal year up through the current fiscal year and even into the proposed 2021. And I looked at Board of Ed, electric and gas, electricity and for the library, utilities for central facilities, police and fire. Because as I said, the utilities are all over the budget. And I'm not seeing a tremendous decrease in budget line items. So the only one I really see is utilities for central facilities, and that was about a $20,000 decrease. And so I remember, I didn't watch the video of that Johnson Controls special. I'm sure you remember the meeting I'm talking about.
I remember it was yesterday.
It was fun. Tim and I had some great concerns about the boilers in the high school.
I remember the boilers.
Remember? We're like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with those boilers? But anyway, I digress. I didn't watch the video, but I do remember, it's not reflected in the minutes, that there was supposed to be a reconciliation at the end of each year by Johnson Controls with data provided from the UI. Is there any way I could, it's been a few fiscal years now, can I see that reconciliation and see how that's going? Or can you give an assessment of the success of the, that purchase lease financing arrangement?
So the assessment in terms of the success of it is essentially, ladies and gentlemen watching on TV, we took $6 million worth of future taxpayers' expenses out of budgets by engaging in a performance contract with Johnson Controls. And it was a contract that we were the first or second municipality to engage in this, and now several municipalities have followed us in this. So the success of it was replacing aging infrastructure, including the boilers at the high school. of which Ed and I then, with the town attorney, ended up getting a settlement from the boiler company for those boilers that were defective prior to their life cycle that they should have been. So this performance contract is roughly over a 17 or 18-year period. And yes, there should be a reconciliation every year, but the way we design this, whether there's a reconciliation or not, it's almost irrelevant, because we negotiated the fact that after the 18-year period, if the savings weren't there, Johnson Controls would subsidize the difference. And that is the biggest success of this. So whether, there are savings, we're not debating that, but whether or not the savings don't equate to the total money that was invested by them to put in over a 12-month period, all of the new boilers, all the new furnaces, they're on the hook for subsidizing the difference if the...
Yes, I remember that, but I had also requested the note that was signed. I think it was with Bank of America, and I believe we were the second municipality. East Hartford was the first one, so I have a memory too. So you say it's not alarming to you that we don't see any decreases in utility bills to substantiate that $400,000? When did the payments begin to be made? I requested a copy of the note several times and was never provided it. So when did the payments begin on that note?
Probably back in after it was completed. But you got to keep in mind that in the utility lines are where the payments are. So the money saved was going to be used to make the payment. And the lion's share of those payments come from the Board of Ed. I think it's more like 70-30 or 60.
Yeah, some was in...
They get the larger
yes.
share of it, but I think what happened on their end, someone decided to cut the utilities because they were going to save it and didn't realize that they have to take the payment. That's why they had an issue with their utility lines. So
Okay.
whatever I'm saving, I'm using that money to pay back the loan.
But, so it may, you might want to explain that, it may not appear right away in the line because you put in the original calculation and the savings are used to pay back the performance contract.
Right, that's why the utility line looks like it's flat. And
So let me
Okay.
try to summarize this, Sally, okay?
Yep.
Just to amplify. So if you don't see the savings in the line, the line is going to be higher than what the utility bills are for the most part. And then we internally use that difference to pay the performance contract every year for those 17 or 18
Right, out of the
years.
savings.
Out of the savings, right,
We don't have it in a separate line, otherwise, then you'd see the utilities drop.
right.
I think if I could, and Sal, your memory is better than mine, and Mike's is probably too, but I do recall a member question the boilers. Can we question the payback on the boilers?
Right.
Specifically, for quite some time, until it was finally pointed out, maybe by Ed, maybe by someone else, that while the payback didn't seem, I guess optimal is the best word I can use right now, that the boilers were failing and was a way to get the boilers paid for. We were going to have to pay for new boilers anyways,
And
right?
one of them was in Montauk, too.
Yes, that was the one in Montauk.
Yeah.
Right.
That wasn't the high
That
school
was
ones. That
very
was-
expensive.
Yes, that was the Montauk one.
So hopefully that answers that, Sally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the Board of Ed, like you said, 70% of it was Board of Ed infrastructure improvement, and in 15-16, which is the fiscal year at the time that we had this meeting, the line was 892, and then it stayed at 892, then up to 924,000, 958, 958 again, and now this year they're asking for 1,185,000. So you're saying some of that increase is paying on that?
They were
Note.
not supposed to cut their utility lines, I think, going back a couple of years.
Okay, okay. All right. I just, like I said, I hadn't thought about that Johnson Controls in a while, and I could remember, you might remember, I was a little hesitant about it, and I was always anxious to know how it turned out. And, you know, now with a good 3 fiscal years under our belt, I was just, following up on it.
I think, once again, to close...
I got it.
And I'm glad you asked the question, because it gives us a chance to explain something that happened almost 5 years ago now. But the real key point is, if we didn't do this performance contract, we would have had to budget boiler expenses at a significant amount of money in capital that we don't have to do now because of Johnson Controls.
Right.
So,
Well, we could have used the settlement money to to buy the new ones.
Well, the
And,
settlement money wasn't quite the total
it never
amount,
is,
no,
I know.
so.
You know, we all know about depreciation, yes. And my second issue, I just wanted to talk about the consultant line in the expenditure budget. I believe it's page 11 in the fire department. Because I just, that line, Mr. Chairman, I've asked about this in the past. It has never been budgeted for. Although for 2021, there is a $150,000 request. But since 16-17 fiscal year, even though zero has been budgeted for consultants in the fire department, we've seen in 16-17, 62,000 was expended for a consultant in the fire department. 17-18 fiscal year, it was $89,992. And last fiscal year, 18-19, it was $96,100. And this year, if you look at your current expenditure report, we're at $50,992. My question is, Mr. Chairman, with this never having been budgeted for, and I did talk with, as you had recommended that I do, I did talk with finance director about this, and he explained, as I thought, that it was a subcontractor.
Yes.
An independent contractor, excuse me, not a subcontractor, an independent contractor paid with a 1099, so I did have that discussion. My question for you, Mr. Chairman, is what is the budgetary authority to pay these consultant fees year after year when it's not budgeted for?
These all tied to the permits, correct? These tied to permits?
These are the 1 to 4, he does the 1 to 4 statutory inspections primarily. Mr. Egerton, is it?
You're talking about Jim, the fire department salary? Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you see it, it's listed under year-to-date expense on the special revenue report, $50,992.90, which is the exact amount that's listed in the expenditure report on the consultant line under the fire department. So it's the same person. I believe he mostly does the 1 to 4 year inspections of existing businesses in town.
Right.
He may do some fire fees, but I think he's primarily doing those 1 to 4 year statutorily required inspection. So I'm just wondering now, we're after 3 years and this year being the 4th year, what is the budgetary authority for that?
This is a line item that was missed off the,
Right, this is we had to put 150,000 in there, and I didn't add it in when I did the budget.
Yes, I pointed that out a few months ago,
Right.
yes.
No, I get that.
I know, but
But either way, if I didn't put them in that, I'd put them in building fees, building consultant.
it's
There
always,
is a line,
it's always
either way.
reported in the
Right.
fire department.
True.
Right.
But I could have easily just put it under that category.
And, right.
Building fees.
Right, and there was an attempt to put the 150 in for the current year, but because of the mathematical error, the
didn't
chairman
show.
told me that
Right.
it's not in the budget.
Right.
And it certainly wasn't in 17-18, in 16-17 fiscal year when we spent 62,000 on it, or 17-18 when we spent
and we have to make sure
$89,992.
Mrs. Winkowski doesn't spend a dime more than what the overall budget is. So it covers, because it is a mandatory requirement.
What's the mandate? Well, the inspections are, but what
Yeah,
is the
his error-
budgetary?
His error in leaving it off.
What is the budgetary authority for hiring this independent contractor? That's my question. Where is it in the budget to hire him? He's not, certainly not in the employment table. He's not an employee. It's not contractual obligations, which you use as justification for the promotion of the captains a couple of months ago. What is the?
Departments hire subcontractors all the time, and they could be in various accounts.
But
They're
but
not
they have
spelled out in
lines.
separate lines.
But those other departments, like Public Works and Building, have consultant lines. The fire department never had,
But
and
they may
still
not-
doesn't have,
they
a
may
consultant
not
line.
have them in a they hire subcontractors for various jobs throughout the year, and they will not be just a consultant line, they'll be in another category.
See, to me, this is just another expense. I mean, there's got to be lots of expenses that we don't have
A
an
line item
individual
for.
line for that you have to lump in a
Well, this is
certain
what's
way,
happening.
right?
I can't have a line for every item in the budget. Otherwise, I'll have 1,000 lines. They have to be consolidated somehow.
Well, this
I mean, this
guy
was a
was hired
different one,
in October of 16, I believe, and and his contract keeps getting renewed. So it's not a one-time thing. This is the fourth fiscal year that this has been going on, that and I'm not talking a couple of $1,000s. I'm talking,
But Ed did
several
budget-
hundred thousand.
Ed did budget the line this year.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it
I
just
just wondered,
fell off.
I know there's a proposal to budget for it now for 2021.
Make sure it adds up this time.
Yeah, do the math. What was the budgetary authority for doing it this year and the previous 3 fiscal years? That's my question.
There's money in the department that would be used for it. It's not specifically broken out, but just like
Okay.
all the other categories, there's various things in those accounts. It's not broken out into 100 different things.
Now, I understand there's 500 lines, and
Right.
I have no problem with a line going over, and then we use the transfer,
Right.
that's fine. But this is a line that doesn't exist, that keeps showing up with, okay. So you're just categorizing it as an expense.
Yes.
Right.
And so just creating a line when one did not exist in the budget that was approved at
Well, I'm trying
referendum.
to provide more information to people.
Okay,
I
okay.
could easily bury it somewhere.
Okay. And I just wanted to make a comment on, I'm,
Come on, you said 2 things now.
no, but this something came up during your discussion on Mrs. Barrett's contacting this gentleman at CCM.
Yes.
I commend her initiative. I agree with the first selectman that she should have CC'd you and the chair. I don't know whether you signed the letter personally or as a member of the Board of Finance.
She can send it personally, it's not a problem.
Well, how did you sign it?
I just signed it with my name.
Oh,
Board
okay.
of Finance.
Right, but, I commend the initiative, but you know what? I've looked at every Board of Selectmen meeting from 2009, and I saw a lot of rusty performances, and, everybody needs to learn their way, and
that's
no
why we
question,
just-
she's trying to help the town. She signed it personally, not as a member of the Board of
Well,
Finance.
she did.
And-
She
did sign it as a
identified herself
board.
as a member of the Board of Finance.
And
Oh, but you signed it as a person.
She said, "I'm a member of the Board of Finance."
In the
and I'm a-
letter.
And I'm a CCM member.
Oh,
And she
well.
sent it from her work address.
Right.
during the day,
with my
along
my
with
work
email.
title.
Any elected official we receive CCM reports, so
Yes.
she
So, but that's-
misused the
that's-
term member. Yeah,
that's-
she's not a member. She's
Not a
a
member.
recipient of information
All
from
we're
them.
saying is you have
Yeah.
to be careful as an individual person of any board.
Right.
Without the approval of the chief elected official, you can't be establishing policies that no one else knows about.
Right. No, I agree she should have CC'd you and the chair, no question, but I still commend her for her initiative and her effort to help the town and show legislative initiative, because as you said, that's what's necessary here to address that particular problem. And we all, when we're first starting out, as I learned watching 2009 Board of Selectmen meetings, we all have a learning process, and I'm sure she'll...
I hope it was a learning process,
Right.
because I spent almost 10 minutes that
Right.
day
Right.
talking about what I'm trying to accomplish at a state level on special education through CCM.
Right.
It's one of my major priorities to minimize the volatility that every single municipality goes through. We're working on programs at the state level. I've met with the governor on this. So
Yeah.
I was quite surprised to see the email on something
Yeah.
I'm already working on
Right.
when I wasn't copied on the email.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to be a little referee here. I agree with you that you should have been emailed, and the chair, absolutely, but I could still commend her initiative, and I'm sure she'll fine-tune the proper way to do
All right,
so.
we'll move on.
Thank you
Okay,
for your
Anyone
time.
else for public comment? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're back. It's good to see you again. So, only once a year we do get to meet each other.
I'm solo this year,
Still
so
this year. Want to take us through your request?
we didn't send in any current or any changes to the budget
Okay.
in November to the finance when requested, so I don't have anything to say except for I would have, in retrospect, probably have upped it a little bit for our election expenses because it is a presidential year. last Friday, we found out that not only were we having a Democratic presidential preference primary, we're having a Republican presidential primary on April 28th. So that increases it somewhat. Our budget has to take in that. And in November, with the presidential, we are asked to, by the state, to order 110% of the voters in our town. So it's about 20,000 ballots in total. So that ups what we need. Ballots always cost more. I mean, it's increments, but it's there.
Right now, what does the 46 represent? How many primaries, referendums, et cetera?
We usually budget for 3,
Right.
but this year and we bring the referendum into that. So it's the primary in April, referendum maybe 3.5 weeks later. Yay! And then and that'll pass. If it doesn't pass, you have one in June, a referendum in June. And then in August, you could have a primary, state level, senators, something like that and then you have the November primary. So we usually budget for 3, and one of those is usually a primary, but it's usually in August.
There's a chance we could possibly have 4.
Correct. So that means staff, that means it's expensive. It's expensive because they've added things to the election day, like election day registration, which you need a staff for, things like that, little things. We'll make do, and if we don't, I'll talk to Ed.
I don't recall. Do we do the primaries at one location?
No, we can't.
we
They
can't.
won't allow it.
Okay.
Believe me, it would save money. I think you're saving a little money for a month, because I'm working solo. So far, you're saving about a month's salary. But I'm happy to have Lori Jean coming on, and even if it's a month from now, I'll take it. So a lot of things going on, but otherwise, I think that we'll just, we can try very hard to stay within our budget.
Okay. Any question for the registrar?
With the additional elections, you can, your numbers are here, were set on what you believe were the number of ballots you needed, the number of workers you needed, and now you're going to need more.
Maybe short one.
Yeah.
Something for us to think about.
Okay.
Borrow from each other. We borrow from the line items too. If there's something given, taking. I mean, the bulk of it is election day expenses and ballots and voting. So, and we've upped those in the past few years. We'll see. This is people are very excited about the primary, so one way or the other. Cards are flying in daily. So people are changing parties, doing things that they need to do. It'll get heavy and hot in August.
Well, the budget's not that big, so if you do go over, I'm sure the magical Mr. Swinkowski can find some money somewhere.
Of course.
Any other question for the
Not
registrar?
smiling.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Who does the admin? Admin and assessor.
Gary's here.
Mr. John, no, Gary, you're first.
Right.
Stacy wants to come first? Come on, Stacy.
Town clerk.
Good evening.
Hi, Stacy.
Stacy Yarborough, Town Clerk, Tax Collector. You have my 2 budgets before you. Nothing out of the ordinary from prior years. So if you have any specific questions to address, I am available. I will reiterate that it was a surprise with regard to election costs that we were going to have a double presidential preference primary. To reiterate the registrar's comments about those extra costs, which will also be extra costs in my own office for absentee balloting. But I think we'll be fine.
I don't...
Absentee ballot?
Yeah, same thing. Other than contract-driven salary change, you're pretty much zeroed out.
No, I don't think I made any increase, to be
No?
honest.
Did you have anything in capital? I don't think so.
No, nothing to add unless you guys have some questions
Where's
for
the
me.
town clerk? What page is town clerk?
No, I just,
20.
20?
Anyone have any questions for Stacy? We like it when there's pretty much
Yeah, it was nice
no
meeting you.
changes.
See, I just had one quick question, and
Sure.
again, this is more related to what we see in our expense reports every month
Which office?
for the town clerk.
Okay.
So I'm just curious as to the overtime line item and why that has been kind of ramped up this year.
Because I have been short-staffed for an extensive amount of time. Unfortunately, what has occurred is that I'm struggling to find a part-time staff member who actually wants to stay and be part-time and not move up to a full-time position somewhere else, you know. So because of that, my regular staff has to work extra to make up the part-time position.
So they stay late?
They, more often than not, they're working through their lunches.
I see. Okay.
Not really a lot of staying late except for during, it's usually the lunches.
Just through the lunches?
Normally.
Because it's about 400%, so that's why I was
It's
curious.
been quite some time. I actually had a vacancy, had someone come in, and then she found a full-time job somewhere else. So I am back to having a vacancy. So if anyone's watching TV and is looking for a part-time position as a town clerk, please contact me. I've been very lucky. I am fully staffed now in the tax office, so that was a problem in tax as well, but it's worked out very well. I have a great staff everywhere I work.
Anything else for Stacy? Just as a reference point, that the 384% you're over is $1,400 that you're over in.
Oh, it's not a lot of money, it's
Yeah.
just percentage-wise.
Just percentage. You had something, Michael?
No, I want to commend Stacy on the computer system, the online records, and everything else you do to make it very accessible to the public.
I'm glad you're pleased.
Thank you, Stacy.
I do appreciate it. It's been a uphill battle for a while, but it's looking good, so thank you.
Thank you,
Stacy.
Thank you.
Mr. Johns?
Well, I'm in the same position as the others that presented tonight, really presenting no changes to the budget. I did request a small increase for the Board of Assessment Appeals due to additional hours that they may need for the revaluation work. I mean, it's not a lot of money either way, so at your discretion. I think right now our appeals are looking like we'll probably have about 150 total, which is pretty good. I mean, we've had, last 5 years ago, we had over 200. 10 years ago, we had nature of 500 to 600. So, you know, it's not looking like it's too much. So if we stay at the 3,500, that's fine with me right now. It looks like that will be okay. Other than that, there aren't any other changes.
Gary, I don't see the increase, if any, for personnel in the assessor's office?
I don't do that.
Oh. I'm looking what was handed out, sorry, I didn't look in here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it in here?
Yeah, he's just looking for a change. The rest comes from Ed's
Okay, I
office.
guess, that's right.
Page 22.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just, looks like you're the same thing. You pretty much zeroed out contract-driven for raises. Other than that, it's pretty, yeah, it is unchanged.
Gary, what do we budget the legal fees for any appeals if it gets to a court case?
What do we,
Where do we budget the legal fees if
There's
it gets to a court case on an appeal?
I think that's
Town
professional.
line of legal.
Oh, just goes in town, yeah.
There's one.
Okay.
I just have a quick question for you, Gary. Again, regarding the increase for the Board of Assessment Appeals. If you actually look at the amount that was actually spent in 2018-19, it was only about $313.
Correct.
And year-to-date, it's only about $100.
Right.
So it really took an enormous jump from 18-19 to 19-20, where it went from $313 to $3,500, and now you want to increase it from $3,500 to $5,000.
Well, 3,500 is the line item that has been budgeted.
Right.
Our
No, I
actual
understand.
expenses, but the last year's Board of Assessment Appeals was the last year of a 5-year reval.
Mm-hmm.
So they had 5 years prior to that to make their appeals. So we probably just had a handful last year, which is normal. The first year or two, you get most of your appeals, and then they taper off. So last year, they didn't have very much.
Right,
So, if they had a dozen, probably last time, that was a lot.
right. But in this current fiscal year, it's budgeted at $3,500, and
Right.
so far, it's only been about $100
Right, but that's why I explained that I'm going to have to they're going to have to deal with 150 appeals this year,
this
Yeah,
year.
that doesn't start till when, February 1st, Gary? What's the timing on the appeals process?
That's what I'm trying to get.
March 2nd. Just to start.
So the real expense won't kick in till March, is that right?
Right.
All righty.
Anything else?
And likewise, the professional appraisals also seem to take a big jump. Again, going back to what was actually spent in 18-19 was about $5,000, and then for the current fiscal year, it jumped up to 15, and you're
Right.
asking for the same amount.
For the same reason.
Professional appraisers are going to go up a lot this year. Last year, I think we had one big one last year that we did, but there are going to be a lot more coming up.
Realize that all this stuff's going to hit in March again.
Right.
The appraisal fee is probably a little later than that, maybe in the summer, because it takes some time for the commercial
Get through.
properties to get through the court systems, so.
Anything else for the assessor?
Today, we received the spreadsheet for the grand list. Thank you very much for getting that to us. Of course, I also requested some of the major changes that may have occurred,
Right.
especially regarding Amazon. Were you able to get any of that information?
I have lists of the largest increases and largest decreases, if that's what you're interested in.
Yes.
And I can provide this to the board.
Send me the copy, I'll have it distributed.
And the top 10, out of top 20, I don't know if everybody's got that.
Yes, thank you.
have
Thank you very
that?
much. Yeah, I do not have
Okay.
that.
It's in the capital.
It's in the capital.
Okay.
Well,
And
But it might, but it's
Yeah,
changing
it
for the
would've
next
changed
after
current
one.
years.
Yeah.
It's changing for the
this is
next,
for the 19 grand.
because of rebound.
Yeah,
the
we're changing
capital won't show
October.
that list, though.
Yeah.
And if there's anything else anybody needs, you can go through the chair and, provide all that information. Of course, the big item in here was Amazon, of course, but there were some other significant projects that came around. Amazon is in a 7-year phase-in of their economic development program, so this year they're only paying 25% of their increased assessment.
Yes, that's
So-
year one, 25% is year
Right.
one? Yeah.
But they came in with a significantly higher than expected personal property declaration, so that helps out a lot.
So they are now the number one taxpayer in the
Absolutely,
town of
well,
North Haven.
they-
And the number one employer.
They are 6.1% of the overall grand list. And Medtronics, which was formerly number one, is now 4.3.
Realize the state probably only gives us 8%. Amazon gives us almost as much as the state gives us.
And to Gary's point, just one final note, what we'll see is with the phase up, I call it a phase up, it goes from 25 to 35 to 45. So every year on the real estate side, folks, you will see more dollars coming in on that side. And on the personal property side, because they continue to upgrade and update the personal property, we won't see the same depreciation schedule that we do for personal property in general, because they're always updating, whether they be new robots, new rack systems, new electrical systems. So the point is, every year, the real estate is going to grow.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, and the personal property was not part of the economic development agreement, so we get 100% of that
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah. I did notice that the industrial once again went down. Now, in the prior year, I think it was last year, your report, you were reclassifying some of that property from industrial to commercial.
Only one property, and that was the Amazon property.
Is that what the case is here on this sheet?
It shouldn't be.
Okay, so the reduction of 45 million in industrial real property, is that just due to depreciation?
It's due to the property values of the parcels.
Really?
Industrial properties are not desirable in Connecticut.
Okay, that's a 20% decrease in the last since the last revale, 5 years ago.
Look at Circuit Wise and Saco Point Road, it's just rotting over there.
Yeah.
The value of that had to have gone down, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Basically, I don't know, but overall, commercial properties are healthy.
Yeah,
Industrial properties are sick,
okay.
just to put it, in broad terms, because the lack of manufacturing and production in Connecticut in general.
And also, Gary, it's another state initiative that we're working on, is brownfields. Many of the industrial sites are contaminated. So under the Connecticut Transfer Act, they can't be sold, so then they depreciate every year. So what we're working on is to try to, and we're doing this right now, is identifying sites, which we call brownfield properties, and the state is supporting us in terms of the identification of that, and hopefully we get brownfield grants to restore some of these properties. So the point is, I think in the next couple of years, we may see a slight increase in industrial, either because of the brownfields or because, like a current building that I'm involved with on State Street, it was in a shambles. Now it's being redeveloped and rebuilt, and we're looking at putting new tenants in there. So I think we'll get a slight uptick on industrial.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, it's an important area for the town. And fortunately, we still have some major manufacturing with Medtronics in particular.
Right.
And they continue to make investments in the town with their personal property and other real estate improvements. So, hopefully they have plans to stay here for quite some time.
North Haven is a little bubble in the state, isn't it, though?
To that point, we're working with Medtronics tomorrow. I'll be with them on a major expansion there.
Good.
So,
Good.
Then residential, it's showing about a 0.5% decrease.
Very flat.
Yeah, and usually year in, year out, there's about a 0.5% increase in terms of additions and new construction.
Well,
so
that's all taken into account, but you have to remember, you're a residential appraiser. You know the top end of the market
Yes,
is dead.
yes.
So those assessments on the top end of the market came down, reflecting the actual sales that are occurring. So that's a big part. Now, the lower, it's about 50-50. Those that have increased, those have decreased. The lower end of the market and the middle end of the market are healthy. That top end is not.
Okay. Well, the reason why we focus on that, of course, is to understand that the changes in the tax bills, should the mill rate, say, stay the same next year, as might be promised.
No,
well, the mill rate's going to stay the same. That I can guarantee you.
It could go down 1/10 of a point.
Right, it just might.
But that top end of the real estate market is really, for the residential market, is very soft.
Are we good? Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Chief? The three people in front of you made up 10 minutes.
Page 26.
11 minutes. I'm sure you'll have this covered. Would you like to take us through
The sidewalk.
your budget, please? Same thing, lot of zero increases.
And first, just to start, I just want to thank you again for taking the time. I know it's a long road for you, and I think this is the end, so I think we can kind of move quickly because we don't have a lot in here. There's a few things. But just to caution the board, as far as our personnel line doesn't look like it's adjusted or has gone up that much, and that is because the current CBA with the collective bargaining agreement with the police union is still in negotiations, and the dispatcher's contract expires on June 30 of this year. So we can't put any type of increases in there. So the only adjustments that you'll see on that personnel line and the associated overtime line that would go with that is for the clerical. Okay? So it's, I hope when things are settled, the adjustment would be reflected in our budget so we can go forward on there.
Okay.
But other than that, I think what we did was we presented something to you that I think is it's very responsible. As far as our line, I'll start with my line item adjustments, and that overtime line I talked about was the 4 additional dispatchers as well as the other ones we talked about last year. So the overtime will reflect an increase of some dollars to cover for vacation, any sick time, or training. Okay, but it appears to be somewhat minimal.
Chief, I just have a quick question about that. What is your plan in terms of the number of dispatchers that are on at any given time, given the fact that you've brought on four more?
We're going to run 2 on days, 2 on evenings.
Okay.
We'll have the 1 on midnights. And then there's always going to be somebody that's off.
Uh-huh.
So that basically would cover our staffing. And there'll be a swing in there as well.
Right. So then that person that's off is effectively available for coverage.
Correct.
And would kind of minimize this overtime line.
No, they would be on overtime.
If they were on their day off, then they would...
It's still overtime,
Yeah,
I see.
right.
So it's not just an extra
Right.
shift.
And I think you brought it up last year.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
when we talked about personnel and how it drives the overtime.
Well, I wasn't sure whether dispatch is considered exactly the same as the rest of the police force in that regard, in terms of
right.
contractual
Yeah,
placement.
and it will be.
It will be.
It's getting to a point where we needed the 2 all the time on days and evenings, especially with the...
Taking over medical.
Taking back the EMD, the emergency medical dispatch. So you're going to need to have somebody there that's going to be able to triage the calls and dispatch the fire services and the ambulance.
Great. Thanks for clarifying.
Sure.
Chief, excuse me 1 sec. Overtime regular, overtime town projects. The regular would be just extra time in the car versus town project?
Yeah, the town projects would pretty much be the picking up of the leaves, any tree trimming that gets done, any excavation of sewage, drainage jobs, anything like that.
That the town undertakes.
That the town undertakes. The rest would cover replacement costs for, vacation, sick time, training,
I see. Okay,
injuries.
Yep, understood.
You see it as 2 separate lines, and the monthly printout I get, it's all one big bundle.
Yeah.
And the uniform allowance, as far as line item adjustments, again, that would be to cover for the new personnel that we've taken on. The custodial contract, last year I had asked for an increase from the 19,000 some odd dollars it was previously, with the assumption that with the new building, we would need $25,000 based on the square footage price that we were paying at that time. The new contract came in at $38,000. We had to sit down with the owner and told him basically he had to sharpen his pencil, and he knocked it down $6,000, so we have it at $32,000. So there's going to need to be an adjustment there. Our regional asset and equipment and maintenance line, there was a majority vote of the regional membership. The equipment line was increased overall by $1,000. $500 added to the regional traffic unit, and $500 was added to the regional SWAT unit. This is the teams that's made up of Madison, Guilford, Branford, North Branford, East Haven, and North Haven. These are shared regional assets as far as major traffic accidents, and as well as our SWAT.
East Haven's still controlling traffic and we're still doing SWAT?
That's correct.
I thought he was taking the SWAT. We have the SWAT?
No, we have SWAT.
We control it. We don't control it. We supervise and manage it, and they supervise and manage the traffic end of it.
East Haven.
They were really crackerjacking that from the get-go. They had a number of accident reconstructionists, and it just seemed best at that point to let them control that.
Right.
We were pretty much crackerjack with the SWAT part with the deputy chief when he was captain, and we ran that side of it. The video recording lease, with the new building, there's an addition of interview and interrogation room. We used to have one, we now have two. And the cost of Connecticut mandated recording of such rooms has increased that total by $6,200. You have to, if you're going to bring in somebody and if they're going to be charged with a felony, then you're going to need to make sure that they're properly videotaped. And some of the misdemeanors, I believe, as well. Was it A and B misdemeanors? Yeah.
So that's just an annual cost independent of the number of times you use it?
Right, and what that is these are what we have here, and it drives me crazy, so it must, I'm assuming, drive you even crazier, is these maintenance contracts and maintenance costs for some of these things that you have to have. We are really technology-driven now, as everything. Years ago, I mean, who would have thought that you would have body cameras or APHIS machines? I mean, somebody like me that's been here for so long, this is like Dick Tracy stuff.
Yeah.
But it comes with a price. It comes with a management or a maintenance package, and these are recurring annual costs, which really it drives you crazy, And most of them, if you look at them, they're all like $3,600. You can almost pick up the phone and you know that you're going to get a maintenance contract and it's going to be $3,600 because they know that most towns and cities will pay that. But once it hits like a $4,000 threshold, then there's going to be questions and answers, and there's going to be pushback.
That's why we'll buy it for $19.99, but not for $20.
Right.
There's people here in the retail business that know that.
There is one new line item that I've put in there. I put in it last year as well. I'd like to have you reconsider it, if you would, and that is a new line item that is titled CALEA. CALEA is the Commission for Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies. This is national accreditation. This is something we're really proud of. We're one of only 7% of all the police departments in the United States to have national accreditation. Of the 19,000 plus police departments I think that we have in the United States, we're one of the 7% that have national accreditation. And this is a benefit not only to us as a police department, but to the town as well. I mean, it keeps the police department current in all of our policies and procedures. It gives us some added insulation for not all civil litigation, but to a good part or good much of it. And in the end, it's going to enhance your service delivery of policing to the town. And I haven't seen it, but there's also supposed to be some type of a cost savings on the other end as far as the insurance, the liability insurance. So it's something that we could look at. But right now, we're paying $4,600 a year for this CALEA. This is coming out of our training account. We'd like to have it stand on its own two legs if at all possible. At the same time, this second new line item under our operations and maintenance is a Wolverine fire suppression maintenance contract. When we put the building, the new building up across the parking lot, our water pressure was not sufficient for the fire suppression that is building, its code, its building code. So we had to put fire suppression in the building, and the water pressure in the center of town was not capable of having a sprinkler system in the police station. So we had to put a fire pump in there. And the fire pump in the new police station, believe it or not, was somewhere in the tune of $90,000. So we were able to cut some corners to make sure that we were able to afford that. But again, with these items comes a maintenance contract, and this maintenance contract is $4,300 a year.
So we have to challenge you because it's not 3,600.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that one. You're right. And then there is one item here of new personnel. This is something that came at the pretty much the request of the Board of Education, and this has to deal with an additional SRO to be at the high school. Right now, we have an SRO that's been in the high school for the better part of 30 years. That person comes out of the police operation budget. And we've provided that for a number of years, and more recently, they've been kind of charting how often the SRO actually leaves that building to attend other business, other youth business in other schools. I don't want to name the amount of time that the SRO is not there, I mean, for security reasons, but it's sufficient enough that they had asked that we consider putting a SRO similar to what we have in the elementary and middle schools in the high school, and that that officer that we have, our full-time officer that's assigned to our detective bureau, even though she's in uniform, she can continue to do the youth officer business that she's supposed to be doing with all of the schools, as well as what's going on at the middle school and high school. So that's...
So, Chief, could I just ask, to just for the purpose of clarity here, could you just distinguish between a school resource officer and a supernumerary? Because as I understand it, we have the one school resource officer who's a full-time member of the police department.
Right.
That's at the high school.
Right.
And at the middle school and the 4 elementary schools, we have, based upon the June 2018 town meeting,
Right.
we have supernumeraries.
That's
and they
correct.
are retired police officers
Correct.
who work only during the school year and are paid on an hourly basis.
Correct.
And so are you looking to add another police officer or an SRO, or are you looking to add a
It would be
supernumerary?
similar, that's a good question. And for clarification, it would be a supernumerary,
Okay.
and they would be assigned as an SRO.
Okay,
Yep.
it's a pet peeve of mine, but
Yep.
I try to clarify this with
Nope.
the Board of Ed members and others,
Nope.
because those two terms are used
Right.
interchangeably, and it's really important.
Yep.
So you're saying an additional supernumerary for the high school?
Correct.
And so at the high school, we would then have one SRO, one supernumerary, and 2 security guards. Is that correct?
I don't know what the Board of Ed has as far as, they have security. I don't know the number of security people that
Okay.
they have there.
I'm pretty sure that they have
Okay.
2 people, again, I don't say
Yeah.
for security reasons
Right.
where, but as I understand it, then you're proposing 4 people, then only 2 of them under your control.
Correct.
That would be
Right.
responsible for security for this one high school. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Chief, it may have changed, but at one time I thought the Board of Ed and the police department were splitting the cost of the school resource officer. Is that not true any longer?
We what we do is we pay for that officer that is at the high school, and in that person's absence, there is funding available through the Board of Ed side that we can back charge them for people that we're putting on overtime to cover that person. So if for some reason the SRO that's at the high school has recertification training Monday through Friday for some reason, and they're going to be absent for 5 days, we want to make sure that we have an officer there. So we'll end up putting a patrol officer over there on town overtime rate. So we still have to pay the SRO their regular day's pay for going to training. So we'll just back charge them the time and a half for those 5 days.
Do you have any idea how much they have budget, or how much that we've charged them, say, last year, for instance?
I believe it's, our back charge to them is somewhere around $30,000.
So in this case, if you pick up the entire cost of the SRO here, plus your officer, right? Then there's no cost on the Board of Ed side?
That could possibly be very true.
Tim just found 30,000 Board of Ed.
Yep.
Call it a night, wrap it up.
There it is, yep.
Continue, Chief.
Okay, and then, and I think that is pretty much our operations and maintenance part. What I want to mention really quick, too, is the animal control, which operates under us. You'll see an increase in their personnel line, and again, that's contract-driven. And they operate under the clerical union contract, so they're good until June 30th, 2021, so we should be okay there.
Your capital items are next.
There is a request as well for animal control as on the overtime line, if you see that. The current line is 11.5. The 3-year average of overtime paid on this line is 18,444. The animal control officer is on call 24/7. They are responsible for all domestic and non-domestic and wild animals. I think to increase that to the 18,000 would, based on the 3-year average, I think that would be fair. They have an on-call paid that is part of their collective bargaining agreement. And that is budgeted for $5,200. However, their actual cost is $9,200. And the veterinary damages, it's another cost that regularly exceeds its $3,000 allowance. $3,000 for veterinary damage, that's, you could blow that out in one visit. And you have to remember that in the past couple of years, we've been subsidizing our animal control budget line by Hamden's boarding fees. Hamden, to be nice, was given the walking papers, and they were asked to leave. They're gone. So we lost about $12,000 in a revenue stream over there, so we need just to make that up.
So if I could ask the Director of Finance a question, if you don't mind, Chief. So Ed, was the 12.5 used to reduce the expenditures at the animal control, or did it go into the general fund?
Well, it went in the general fund, but it went against this line because we were paying expenses for animals for Hamden So the revenue should go against it to offset it.
So it went in, but then you used it to reduce the,
Like a special fund.
Revenue
Yeah.
went to that.
yeah, okay.
You just have a part-timer there, too.
Yeah.
Your veterinary fees are almost 7,000 right now.
Right now.
Right.
I just looked at
Right.
that, so.
And we're in month 8, we're almost out of month 8.
Vet bills are expensive.
Yeah, vet bills are.
How many animals do we have? Do we have 2 dogs?
Well, this is
No,
for
this
the
is-
animals.
this is
that
the
still
shelter.
along.
This is the shelter?
Shelter.
This is the shelter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my dogs are covered. We're good. Yeah,
So this is the shelter?
Yeah.
this is the shelter, the town animal shelter.
Oh, yeah, no, okay, I recall now, that's when we
Yes.
had the agreement with Hampton.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And since I'm on them, I'll jump over my capital request and I'll just run right to his. There's a roof down there that leaks and it needs to be replaced. ACO Carney's been down there for 27 years. He says he's never had in his time, he says he's never seen the roof replaced. What we did, just to get through the winter, is we had him rip the ridge vent off the centerpiece because we had to patch it and just cover it up. Obviously, we can get through the winter like that because we do have some gable venting, but when it comes to the summer, we're going to need to get that fixed. Otherwise, you're always at the mercy of the state of Connecticut because the animal, I don't know what they call it, the person that's in charge of all the animal people, they'll come down and they can shut us down. And they've threatened to do that before over something as simple as not having weather stripping on the bottom of the door. So, we have to take care of it, because if we don't, then we have to go look for a place to board our animals. And that's not really cost effective in the long run.
Understood.
I think, weren't you talking about a roof last year?
We may have.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
has been.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, it's going to be pay me now or pay me later type. I mean, if we can do it, let's do it.
How many
This one-
animals are in the shelter currently?
That's a day-to-day
Yeah.
affair.
There's 14 kennels, Diane, and usually we arrange with Hamden out of there, we're anywhere from 3 to 10,
Yeah.
let's say.
So-
Tom said it.
Yeah,
So a
we're-
total of 14 kennels, okay.
And they do a good job in actually running adoptions and getting them cleaned out. Every once in a while, they'll run something and they'll advertise and get rid of the cats and the dogs. Not get rid of them, get them
Find
a home.
homes for
There you go. As far as our capital request, I think that you have the annual police vehicles, the laptops, the body armor, the light bars. The body armor is, you'll notice, this is our cycle where we have to replace 22 of them. So normally, we don't ask for as much.
Yeah, normally around 10.
This year, we're looking at 22 units. It's to the tune of $18,000. We do get some help usually from the Department of Justice through the burn grants, where they'll pay upwards to half. So these things can cost anywhere from, what, $600, $700?
$829 on state contract.
$829, yeah. They get expensive, so.
Those lockers probably maintain them better, too, the new ones.
The new lockers should
give you some more life.
Yeah,
I'm never going to not approve body armor. So.
Well, I just want to let you know why it jumped from 10 to 22.
Now, vehicles, that's another question.
Yeah. The automated fingerprint, what we call APHIS. We were looking to purchase a second one. It cost $8,000. The useful life, again, is roughly 10 years. And what we do is we use the APHIS to fingerprint anybody that's going through any type of a permit process, whether it's going to be for a pistol permit,
school background.
Somebody that's going to do school backgrounds, teachers, anybody that's working with kids as coaches, could be somebody in securities and that kind of business. we handle almost 600 people that we processed last year. And we don't charge. We don't charge our town residents. It's something we do at no cost. I mean, it's, you know, they pay taxes. I mean, if we can give them something, we can give them a free fingerprint card. The bottom line is we currently bring them into the detention center area and the lockup. And oftentimes, it's not the cleanest part of the building. It's usually the dirtiest part of the building. And some people get a little creeped out when they're getting fingerprinted on a machine that somebody that's probably diseased has just been fingerprinted on. You know, even though we clean it, you know, so we have a permit and interview room off the new lobby. We like to use it to process our town residents and business people there, as opposed to bringing them into, you know, the balls of detention. You know, that's what's on that side.
Chief, I see on your very first page of this budget, AFIS/recorder, maintenance, et cetera. So if you get a second machine, would that 20,000 go
No,
up?
because that's got, there's a couple of lease, that's a, when we go back and we talk about the maintenance contracts. There's a maintenance contracts for AFIS, for some of the recorders that we have, the telephone recorders. We have the cameras. We now have, we went from roughly 10 cameras in our building to 52, 54?
Somewhere around there.
52 cameras. So these are all coming with maintenance packages that we have under one catch-all.
Oh, so it's just one category. But, so no matter how many AFIS machines you have, it would still be the same maintenance contract?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then, and I think that, other than the cars, and I'll tell you what, I brought the...
Don't be giving me pictures like Public Works does.
No, I won't give you pictures, but I think, do you have that, oh, I got it right here. It sounds like when you look at that dollar amount, it's kind of like a sticker shock. But when you talk about outfitting the police car, and you start looking at the
gun rack.
Well, the
light bar.
the e-ticket printer. Now, some of these things, again, can be taken from one car. You strip one car and you can put it into another. But on occasion, these things have to be replaced. But there's, what's the bottom line on that? You're better at that.
Gotta be
quick and dirty
Gotta be 8 to
number.
12.
Which, for the light bar?
35,000.
Yeah.
If you had to do everything in a vehicle.
Well,
it's
you got a
probably close to 8.
complete outfit for the car is like $11,200.
Okay.
But then if you got the computer part is $5,000 alone. The in-car video is $5,000 if you have to get a new one. You know, the ticket printer is $1,200. So these things get expensive. You know, and again, like, you can usually take them, strip them out, reuse them. You can probably strip them out and reuse them maybe 3 or 4 times, but eventually you have to buy something that's going to be new, and you got to make sure that we.
And you're staying with the same vehicles, those SUVs?
Yeah, we're looking at the Fords again, the ones that we were authorized to get from last year's, the current budget. We haven't received those yet because Ford did not put out the product information until, November? Somewhere around November. Our cars weren't going into manufacturing until the end of January, so we expect that we'll probably receive them in another 2 weeks. In the meantime, these other cars, you know, they're holding their own, but they're racking up the miles.
Excuse me, Chief, how long does it take to retrofit your cars to have all these light bars and?
About 10 days, maybe?
At least.
Yeah, about 10
That's
days.
not too bad.
Yeah, it takes about 10 days. You gotta get into the pipeline with the people, because they not only do our cars, they do, you know, Orange, they do some other, you know, Woodbridge.
This is Wyman's and.
You know, There's a place up in Hamden that does it, Utility Communications. There's another place down in West Haven, but, you know, we got to get them and put them on the road. You know.
I'm glad that there's no Teslas here. Westport, I heard, might have.
They have
the
one.
Tesla.
I saw that. I didn't think it would be appropriate for me to bring that up tonight. No. No.
Thank you.
And I think we covered pretty much everything as far as our capital request and our operationals.
Any questions for the chief?
Where's the video recording stored? Is it actually stored locally, or is it?
For the body cameras?
Yeah,
Body cameras are in the cloud.
I was gonna say they had to be in the cloud. That's what I thought.
It's like off the charts. And we did just receive our new ones. You know, we've got that 5-year package, and every 2.5 years they would give us new cameras, brand new cameras, and everybody got their new camera. So we know that they're good that way. There's something else that's out there that we might want to look at, and I probably should have brought it up at our police commission meeting tonight. There's something called Bolo Wrap. It's taser knocked down a notch, where you actually get shot with like a lasso, and
Oh, I seen that.
they wrap you up. They wrap up your legs and your arms.
It's a shotgun cartridge out of a...
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Pretty
seen
interesting.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to bring it up at the commission meeting next month and see if we can get on board with that. Since we
don't carry tactical shotguns. We carry the ARs.
Yeah, we carry the 223. Yeah. And
That could be an
we're
item.
all set, are we? I think we're good, unless you have anything.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Really quick here, just the personnel full-time line, again, just to backtrack, the number you have in your handout here doesn't exactly match what we have here. Is that right, or is that?
Yeah, it was off like... No. His handout was like 60,000 different than what the book is. I was gonna talk to you about it later.
No. Which one is?
Line 3 on his handout compared to your personal line item. There were, wasn't it 60? I glanced at it.
Yeah.
About 60, yeah.
60.
I just assumed it was, because
We
the
can't forget.
finance puts those numbers
forget
together.
to
We'll
write
make sure the right number's in the budget.
So in the next version of the budget that you put together for us, it will have that correction?
They cannot give you the contractual obligation. It's got to come from finance.
So then what number is correct?
473 is the number that we're working with.
4763.
Okay. We'll
None of the
verify.
departments are going to give you their personnel accurately.
We'll verify.
Well, usually it'd be on the underside, but there's an additional 60,000 here from you?
This comes from HR, it's on this.
Okay.
Okay.
Michael, we'll look at it one more time.
That
I'm
extra
sure.
60 might be part-time.
Well, the part-time is also on your sheet just above it, but okay. All right, yeah, we'll discuss
Yeah, it's
that.
weird that it's the same number, so.
We'll discuss that later. And if a new budget booklet comes out, at what point do we consider adding the new lines that he spoke about, you know?
Well, they're already in the budget.
No, not
Are
the
they?
first one.
Okay, is Kalia in there?
Kalia is not,
Kalia's in there.
is it?
Kalia is under dues and expenses.
Well, but that's, yeah, but we wouldn't know that. Now we do.
It's off by the Oklahoma.
Yeah,
I
you got
know,
your
but
own-
now we do.
I wasn't going to set up under mark.
I know, we already been through this. No more accounts.
Anyone have anything else for the chief?
Is Wolverine in there?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where building maintenance repairs went up by 4,200.
Thank you.
We normally give the chief what he asks us. He usually doesn't ask us for anything that's not necessary. Except for vehicles, but we'll weigh that accordingly.
Yeah. So the dispatch system, though, that, you know, it's going through this big transition because of of the takeover for what Mr. Monaco calls triage, the EMD. Is that going smoothly? Is that where you want it? Do you have enough resources
No,
there?
he doesn't want it there. I wanted it there.
Well, no, I mean, since it's happening and you can't...
It's happening, and...
You're accommodating it somehow.
Yeah, we're going to make it all work, and it's going to work well. We just have to adapt and move forward. It's going to require some added software that's going to have to that come in where you can actually do your Q&A of the caller, and this way you can properly assign the right personnel and apparatus.
The public probably doesn't understand the significant impact that doing dispatch in-house, the benefit is bringing to the town. But us triaging, you know what, you get that 911 call and, kid's got a splinter and the truck's off and rolling, and then 5 minutes later you get a heart attack, and we're now capable to divert that person from the splinter to a heart attack. Before they were just dispatching another vehicle. Definitely is going to enhance public safety in town. I think one of the largest increases. Next to communication tower, probably the best thing that's happened to the departments in a while as a leap forward.
Well, especially if we sub out the transport according to our specifications.
Forget the transport. Just the fact that we can direct.
Right.
Now, the police department, their dispatchers will now direct, triage the call coming in and direct the right resources to it, and not just send an ambulance. We went through a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else for the chief?
Well, just the new building. Are there any problems with the new building yet? No, I mean,
Actually, I think it's energy efficient. And I think the question last year was, we weren't asking for any increases in dollars and cents for a building that was going to be a little bit larger. And I think what we found is because of it's energy efficient, where we run around like old ladies shutting lights off. We keep the thermostat at the right place, but the windows are not leaking, they're not taking in air, the roof's not leaking.
Now, the bond appropriation, did we utilize all of that? Is there still a punch list?
Everything hasn't been finalized.
It's not finalized yet.
No.
But we're under.
They're under. That was the question I was leading to.
I know that was what you're coming to.
Is there any doubt that he would be under?
Well, you could be under $10, but I mean, you're under.
Of all the departments, everyone picks on me because I say sometimes so much with police. In the 13 years or 14 years, whatever it is that I've been doing this, you've never once been over budget.
No, we do our best to stay.
Every department has gone over budget at one time or another, and
we'll have our dark day, don't worry.
No, we ain't gonna let you have a dark day. Now you're under the pressure to keep that momentum going.
No.
But until you deal with your punch list, or until it's finalized and closed out, you're not willing to mention how much you might be under. Is that correct?
Just that it's under is good enough.
You're still under, even though you found 90,000 to increase that water pressure.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Well, a lot of that belongs to the town attorney. Mr. D'Onofrio did a hell of a job in helping us put that budget together, as did Ed. And we had some good help. So I mean, it was, if you could make sure.
Don't forget the owner's rep.
Yeah, that was a good find. I gotta give Mr. Frieda and Ed some kudos on that. I was a little apprehensive on that in the beginning, but that was money well spent. That was good.
I have to agree, as the newbie of the Board of Finance, I've been certainly following the police department for a number of years, and I've been very, very impressed that you've really made very modest increases, and that each year you've managed to come in under budget. And I'd also like to commend you on working so closely with the Board of Police Commissioners, and that, I've heard nothing but wonderful things, and it's very nice to see many of them here tonight, and that they have been involved in looking at the budget each month and seeing how the police department's doing, and also providing their own input towards the creation of the budget. I think
Thank
that's
you.
commendable.
Thank you.
Having said that, thank you, Chief. We are all.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.